And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Perlis Plaza, East Lansing, Michigan, Spartan Stadium, right over there, Paul. It's going to be a football game there a week from Friday, Michigan State against the Western Michigan Broncos, kicking off the 2025 college football season for the Michigan State football Spartans, Paul Konyndyk. And today, Jonathan Smith spoke with the media, talked a little bit about Saturday's scrimmage, second scrimmage of preseason camp. They practiced today. They're off tomorrow, off the next day, and then Western Michigan preparation begins on Thursday, which is also picture day. Mark that one on your calendar if you would, please. Thursday, picture day. Come out and get autographs with your favorite Michigan State Spartans.
I don't think they know what picture day is. It's Meet the Spartans.
Meet the Spartans is what they're calling it.
Yeah, it's been called that for 10 years.
10 years.
Then there's been a hiatus, and now it's back, which is good.
That is good.
Because I think
haven't really had one since before COVID, right?
I thought they had the comeback thing, and then like with the whole NIL thing, there was a weird deal where some guys wanted money to sign autographs.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so. But now it's a good team thing. Meet the Spartans is a great thing, irregardless. I think you need to do something to have outreach to your fans, especially the kids. And they've done that stuff like that with basketball over the years,
yes.
like Midnight Madness and.
Yes.
And so it's good for these guys to come out here and for kids to be able to get autographs with Spartan football players and
some big kids too.
Yeah, exactly. But those big kids better not knock the little kids out of the way, because that bugs me too.
Don't knock the little kids out of the way.
It's like the 40-year-old princesses at Disney World that knock your the little girls out of the way because trying to get autographs.
It's not cool.
Yeah, it isn't cool.
I think they're doing it on the concourse. They, back in the old days, they do it on the field because it was artificial turf. I'm talking in the 80s, 90s. Now you got, the grass is pristine. Probably won't let people trample on the grass, which is too bad, but it's understandable. But chance to get in the stadium and rub elbows with the Spartans and meet people and things like that. So the Western Michigan game week essentially begins right now. Some players might disperse for a day or two, but Western Michigan on the clock. It won't be easy. We'll talk more about that next week. Hey, they went 6-6 last year in a bowl game. They played Wisconsin pretty tough. They're not coming here to lose. That's going to be a football game next week.
I just think it's interesting, too, because we're coming out of the second scrimmage, and it really felt like today it did feel like camp is breaking, because we got some good information on some position stuff and kind of some clarity on where maybe some things are going in different areas, and got some good information on that second scrimmage. So it kind of really felt like it does feel like this thing is progressing, and coming on that second scrimmage, I feel like I know a little bit more about where the team is at going into preparation for Western than I did, maybe coming out of that first scrimmage when maybe some of those competitions were still ongoing. But I think this team is kind of forming. I think they kind of starting to make personnel decisions, and always after coming on that second scrimmage is when it really starts getting into, you have to set your depth chart. At least get an idea of where people that are in that 3 deep, and then,
yes.
Then you have competitions. And some of these competitions will be ongoing into the season, but in other areas I think that some things are more settled.
And more competition second and third string, because when you get into game week on Thursday, when you're repping for an opponent, you're not giving reps to third and fourth strings. You got to whittle that down to a top 2, first string, second string, for game plan install. And then third and fourth string a lot of times spends a lot of time on scout team. So the competition between second and third string and how they're whittling that down and figuring that out right now is, I'm sensing, a lot more competitive and more talent-based and better than it was last year, that second and third string position. We can talk about that over at SpartanMag.com. As a matter of fact, give us a like here on this channel. Go to SpartanMag.com. $1. You can test drive SpartanMag.com subscription for a week for $1. Check it out. You will like it. No word about captains yet, though, Paul. Did he say anything about when they're going to be announcing that?
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be like what we did during the D'Antonio era, where we had camp break and then you had the 3 captains meeting out there. I'm sure it'll be announced week of, because we're not going to have any more media availability until we have a normal game week preparation, which is next week Monday.
Right. As far as news goes, mentioned this on the bunker already, but Jonathan Smith revealed that Nikai Martinez might be out for a game. An injury has gone on there. We've known about it for weeks. We're not allowed to say who's on the sideline and so forth. But I was a little surprised that Smith volunteered that information. That where the rubber hits the road on that is what's going on at the safety position next to Malik Spencer. Who's going to start with him? And if you go back and read my articles about safeties throughout camp, I talked about the importance of second string behind Martinez. I didn't put a nod, wink in there, but I was talking about the importance of that competition. Justin Denson, you hear his name coming to the forefront a little bit during preseason camp. And also, Paul, Armorion Smith. Okay, I heard some good things about him on Saturday and what he's doing. Jonathan Smith mentioned him today. Quite frankly, Armorion Smith did not play well last year, understandably. He had a lot on his mind. Losing his mother, becoming the guardian of his siblings, had a lot of things going on. But it sounds like he's competing for that job and maybe even will be in the playing group. You know, the way Michigan State went out and got Cromwell and Revels and some of the transfers. Some of those guys are younger guys that are for the future and so forth. Nash, Dontanian Davis Nash, a guy I really like from East Carolina. I kind of thought all those guys would be in there, and maybe the coaches did too. Maybe they weren't sure what they'd get from Armorion Smith. But it sounds to me like Armorion Smith has come back with a vengeance. So good for him. He's in the mix there. I'm not saying he's going to start. Those other guys are still pretty good, but Justin Denson, a name to know there. But the news, Nakai Martinez probably out for Smith, like Smith said, for maybe a game. And we heard that weeks ago that it might be a couple of games in September. The coaches have known this for a long time. It's not something that just happened that they're adjusting to. They've been working in that direction for a while.
Yeah, the big thing is with Smith is I thought before the tragedy hit him with him losing his mother, I thought he did some good things, and I thought he was solid when he got on the field. So anything after that, I wasn't. That's not the real. That's not the real him.
The year before, he was the first DB off the bench against Maryland. Played about 40 snaps, then got hurt. That was in 2022.
Right. So I thought he did some decent things, and so I think everything is like, what have you done for me lately?
Uh-huh.
And we forget about things.
I'm guilty of that.
And personal tragedy affects people in a lot of different ways, and you just can't get over that until you work your way through it. And he will obviously never be over that, but it's a process and you can't rush that. So
good for him.
It doesn't surprise me that he's back and doing what we've seen flashes of him in the past. But I also think with a guy like Nakai Martinez being out, it's really good for a guy like Andrew Brinson to get Justin Denson to get some reps. And Andrew Brinson's another guy that's doing some decent things at cornerback, but having Justin Denson get those reps, it's a good deal for him because he is a young player. He got a little bit of experience last year, and all those training camp reps are just going to benefit him because he's got the experience in the system to some extent, and now he's getting a lot of reps and playing a lot of good minutes with ones.
Another health update here in a second, but first, Paul, as you know, Michigan's recycling rate has fallen from 90% to 73% in recent years. Michiganders are squandering $105 million American dollars per year by not taking back their bottles and cans. Michiganders not taking them back. So that's hurting our environment in the state of Michigan. So help the environment, help yourself, help your beaches, help your lakes, help your roads. Take them back, bottles and cans. Take them back, get that recycling, what do they call it? Deposit. It's your dime, it's your time, it's your beaches, your roads. Take them back. A message from Shupan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling, and Shupan dedicated to your Michigan State Spartans as well. On the health front, Jack Velling back on the field today. I'm not sure if it was day one that he returned, but I'm not really sure what the situation's been. But Smith has acknowledged that he's been on the sideline. Coming back now, maybe today was the first day, maybe 2 days in. Smith said something along the lines of looking okay or should be full go soon or something like that. It's going to be intriguing to see what version of Jack Velling we get to see as observers. Game 1 against Western Michigan. Meanwhile, Michael Masunas doing some things there. Tight end Brendan Parachek, they're going to need something out of him. A couple of guys that have had a little trouble staying healthy in their careers. Now's the time for those guys to shine as they get into their man years. Tight end, we haven't heard much about that this spring, Paul.
Yeah, the thing that the tight end really needs is a run game, and we're going to talk about that. I mean, because that's where kind of it all starts. But if the tight ends have a run game and they're involved at a good level in the run blocking operation, then that helps them. And I don't know the tight end how the dynamic is going to work because so much what Oregon State did, so much even last year what Michigan State did was two tights. But the strength of Michigan State's offense to some extent is its receiving room. And
right.
If you've got a collection of receivers that you feel like can do different things for you and present different problems to a defense just by virtue of their physical attributes, then sometimes is Michigan State going to run as many two tight end sets? or is it going to be more deals where you get a tight end as an H-back type deal? And so I don't know what's going to happen out there, but I think the tight end is going to be an important piece for Michigan State. But to me, if you're one of those people that's always complaining about tight ends being more active in the passing game, for that to happen, you have to have an effective run game and you have to have an effective play action game. Then that tight end becomes a really deadly weapon. And I think Michigan State's got some good pieces to work with at tight end. Even though Jack Belling hasn't been out, watching some of those tight end drills, you can see that those guys did a nice job with their bodies in the offseason. Michigan State doesn't have a mismatched collection of tight ends like whereas you used to see in the Mel Tucker era. As much as they talked about having a certain size tight end,
in the future, Savory could become that.
He could, but you look at what Michigan State's got at tight end. They've got big-bodied guys that there's not going to be excuse and say, hey, this guy can't block. I think Savory's going to be a guy that can block.
I don't know about this year.
Not this year. I'm saying down the road, but I
hear he's more physical than they were pleased with how physical he is from the beginning.
Well, what I'm saying is you're not going to have to put your eggs in the blocking basket with him, but I do think Michigan State overall, when you're looking at tight end, I think even with Belling having been out, I think you're going to be in better position with those guys in the run game blocking thing, because I think they took care of themselves physically in the offseason. I think there's some want to. I'm going to be really intrigued to see what Parachek does, because he's a guy that has been hindered by injuries throughout his development, and it's probably not fair to him saying, oh, he's got the body type to block when he really hasn't been able to put in those practice reps over and over again. He has during training camp, and that's going to be a big deal for him. But coming out of that first scrimmage, or coming out of that second scrimmage, the first scrimmage we heard that Michigan State got some good 5 to 6 yard runs. It's my sense in the second scrimmage, the run game took another step forward, and they also got some good red zone runs. So if you can get some red zone scoring runs, that really sets you up to have the tight ends available and effective in the play action passing game.
Yeah, run game, Jonathan Smith said, took some steps on Saturday and then needed to. And you're hearing Tullis ran with physicality again. He said Mekhi Frazier made a play, including what he called an impressive play in the pass game with a reception.
Smith said he had 2 receiving touchdowns.
Mekhi Frazier,
and Mekhi Frazier.
Mixed carry, ladies and gentlemen, hard at work. It's good to see him.
Nick Marsh mentioned, Tullis having a touchdown run in the scrimmage, and he also mentioned Mekhi Frazier. Both those guys taking steps forward. So it seems like going back to the position battle, we didn't know what Michigan State was going to have running back wise and who was going to emerge. But those 2 sophomores apparently have had the separation that they need to, and that's a big thing for Michigan State.
That's my sense also. No one's come out and said that, but we're just hearing more about those 2 guys. I heard Tao Tolliver made a play on Saturday, but I'm hearing those 2. We're just hearing more about those.
It's about consistency, right? So if you're hearing, for the last 2 weeks since they put pads on, we've been hearing about Tullis being physical. That's a code word for he can get the job done. So that's a good deal. And then Mekhi Frazier is a guy that they've been talking more and more about him in the passing game, which is relevant because he did not catch any balls in high school. That's one of those things that they just didn't do, and he wasn't actually involved. So when you're talking about a guy like that becoming active in the passing game, then all of a sudden that's added value for him, but it's also something that keeps maybe someone else off the field. I'll say that because you don't have the excuse with a Brandon Tullis. You'd say he caught 39 balls last year or something like that, like he had 300 some yards receiving at Sacramento State. But if Frazier can catch the ball for you and he's able to put his foot in the ground and do some things between the tackles and run the ball physically, then that's a good thing for him. But those 2 are the guys, in my opinion. I think there's going to be a 3-man rotation to some extent, but I think those are the 2 guys that are going to get the bulk of the carries.
Put your microphone over here. Do you have drum lines? Drum lines, practicing over there by where the pool used to be. That means it's almost football season, Paul.
It does.
They're out there drumming. It's always good to hear those things. The run game, and the big onus is on those guys too, because it's the most unproven running back room in the Big Ten. And Michigan State went out and added one from the portal and stuck with the 2 freshmen, or 2 sophomores now, and they got to come through. And a lot of other areas of the team has more veteran guys that maybe are proven or on the verge of becoming proven, or transfers. That one is not, and they need that to show some progress, gain some traction. Important piece there as far as Parachek goes. The time is now for him to come in and make some contributions, because they need that at that position for sure. We continue to hear things. Well, one more thing about the receivers. Rodney Bullard made a big play, touchdown in the scrimmage. Came out, did interviews today. Slot receiver, talking to Courtney Hawkins about him. Bullard can really run. And we've seen that on film. And Hawkins is like, no, man, I mean, he can really run. He can run on our track team. And Bullard coming out today and talking, he's a slot guy, not a big, tall receiver, but he's got some muscle to him, and he's excited to be here. He wants to make a splash, and he was speaking today because he has been making a splash. I think he missed a little bit of time in the spring. He's competing with Krishan McCray for that slot position. They kind of indicated that everybody knows on the outside you got Marsh and Amari Kelly. Those guys are starting. But there's real good competition between two guys that made plays at a high level at their previous place. Now they're coming in here. They're both going to get on the field, but who starts remains to be seen. But to your point, Michigan State does a lot of two tight ends. And if you do two tight ends, that means the slot's on the sideline. But if those guys are difference makers, do you change things up to get them on the field more? These are things Michigan State's going to be talking about to play to their talent.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially, and then you're going to probably see Nick Marsh in the slot a little bit too as they try to work different matchups. The other thing too is, Krishan McCray was the guy that everyone was talking about. That was the guy that Jonathan Smith was excited about, and then he got dinged up. For good reason. He got dinged up, but at the beginning of spring, I was hearing good things about Bullard because he's explosive. But both those two guys, Bullard and Krishan McCray, can really take the top off. And the way I look at the receiving rotation is the way Courtney Hawkins described it. He said today that he's got his starting five. And he's using the basketball analogy for his receiving core. But he does feel like he has, a quality group of pieces that fit together well. And I don't think he's ever, in his mind, had quite the mix of guys. So when you look at that starting five, you obviously Nick Marsh and Omari Kelly. Then you got Bullard and Krishan McCray, and I think Evan Boyd's a guy that's really done some nice things. Now he's been a little bit dinged up as well, but those guys as a collection are really intriguing. And I think when you have some big-bodied guys, especially if some of those guys can move into the slot or whatever, I'm just interested to see how all this stuff works together. But if they can run the football consistently, then the talents of those guys can take over. Like we've seen a lot of years where Michigan State does have some good receivers. I think some of those Jaden Reed years where they didn't have a running game, it puts an awful lot on your receivers. But if you can run the football and you've got a quarterback that can change plays from the right side of the field to where the run needs to go away from the defense, and you've got a good run blocking operation, then all of a sudden the talent, the diversity in talent really can shine through. And I don't think Michigan State's had that for quite a while. And
we'll see about the run game. And with those receivers.
Going back to the run game, though, so much of it is the offensive line. We talk about having unproven running backs. And Jim Mahalchik coming out last week it was obvious to me that he felt really good about the guys that he has in his room, and he feels like they've got competition and they've got real talent and real depth. And I think those guys are starting to – they're not mixing as matching as much in terms of going from going from tackle to guard or whatever. They're still flip-flopping some positions. But I think as those guys come together, with the install being over in the second scrimmage – you didn't have the install stuff as much, and you're like going more in muscle memory, and you got some good run stuff against a good defense. So I think that bodes well for Michigan State. I think this offensive line is going to be substantially improved over where it was last year.
It needs to be. It should be. That's what we're expecting.
But I think that's where it's got to start. We can talk about their young running backs, and they've got to be better. And they've got to continue to improve, but it starts with the offensive line.
I'm forecasting it'll be better. I've not seen it with my own eyes yet. Watching Goldman last year at Wake Forest, I like the physicality there. Christian Phillips was, I thought, pretty good in game one last year, but we haven't really seen these guys in pads since November. In his case, haven't seen him in pads since last August. 365 days. He's competing with Brocious. Vincent's doing a good job. Stan Ramil at left tackle. And then you've got Connor Moore coming in. I'm not sure about the physicality there. Ashton Lepo backing him up. Still questions about Lepo. It's got to all fit together. There's some individuals there, but it remains to be seen. But that needs to come together for sure for Michigan State to be competitive in a very good Big Ten. We continue to hear good things about Aiden Childs. Courtney Hawkins talking about, he was asked about Childs, and he said in his estimation he's done more on the homework side of things. It's not his word exactly, but just the film work and those things you need to do to take that extra step. As Jonathan Smith has said since day one in the spring, it's important to Aiden Childs. He went out there last year, had some ups and downs, and he's not just cruising along. He's tightening the screws on some things, and Smith says that Aiden Childs is doing a better job in terms of anticipating things, taking the call in the huddle, getting it done, anticipating what the call could be, and all those things just working with more experience. In addition to getting into the right play and out of the wrong play, like you said, something we talked about back at Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. So Childs presumably coming along. That's the most important piece of the whole operation.
Yeah, and I'll go back to what I've said several times with regard to Aiden Childs. It's good. It doesn't surprise me that he's growing up a little bit. Like quarterback will age you. It's something that he's a fun-loving guy coming in, and he took some lumps last year. But I'll go back to the two quarterbacks that had arguably some of the best talent in the Big Ten. Aiden Childs, like in terms of pure arm talent, Aiden Childs and Dominic Raiola. Those are the two guys that. The kid from Nebraska, two of the most hyped underclassmen quarterbacks in the Big Ten, and they took lumps more so than anybody else. And a lot of it's because of experience. You can't. It's a process. You got in the transfer portal area, you got a whole bunch of guys that are old and they're staying old. But to me, I get the feel when we talk to Aiden Childs, when we talk to other people about Aiden Childs, he still is a fun-loving guy. He hasn't lost his personality, but there's a maturity about him, and he understands that. I hate to use this word, but the severity of the position, because it is a severe position. It puts you up on a pedestal, it knocks you down. It's not easy to play, but I do think he's grown up. He's grown a lot, and he has to. And you got to be mature. But I think he's taking more ownership, and I think there's more pieces around him as well.
All right, one more thing. People are, I'm sure, asking you, well, how good is Michigan State going to be? Not really sure. We haven't seen them play since November and all those things. I do think Michigan State's going to be competitive, improved, and respectable. But I'm guessing they're going to be in that lump that we saw last year in the Big Ten. Last year, there were 9 teams that were 5-7, 6-6, or 7-5. Half the conference is going to be that. It's going to be that way every year. There's going to be 9 teams. And you look at the brands and the programs that were in that category last year: Washington, USC, Michigan, Nebraska, plus Wisconsin, Michigan State. I mean, these are strong programs with some highly paid coaches. It's going to be that way again this year. I kind of expect Michigan State to be in that middle 9 again. Iowa was above that last year, and Indiana was above that last year. Illinois was above that last year. That's what you're aiming to get to if you're Michigan State. Are they there yet? Maybe not yet. I think Iowa went out and got a good quarterback. Indiana's bringing in a good quarterback to go with what they had. Illinois got everybody back on offense. They're going to be good. So those teams are going to be there for a while. But as Michigan State, as a program, positions itself, you're kind of in that mosh pit in the middle, looking to rise up. Nobody expected Illinois to do that last year. Maybe Michigan State or someone else in that group, Minnesota, something. Maybe they can do that. I don't know. There's more surprises, I thought, in college football last year than in decades, perhaps. When you have Indiana, Arizona State doing what they did, Florida State falling off the cliff, Michigan falling off the cliff for a while, steadying it. And of course, Washington with what they lost, understandable. Alabama falling off. Georgia falling off. So anyway, I think I guess there's going to be more surprises this year. Who's going to be the surprise teams? We don't know. That's why they're surprises. But I do think Michigan State is going to be respectable and competitive. Is there a chance that all that could be a lot better? Not sure. We'll talk about kickers in a minute. But I think we're going to see some progress, Paul.
I think the thing with Michigan State last year, it's a 5-7 team, and you look at a lot of different areas that they could have been better and got to that 6 or 7 win plateau. The one thing that really killed them was those early offensive line injuries. Jim Mahalchik said the other day, admitted that the portal attrition that they experienced in this post-spring last year really hurt them. When guys going out, and then you got Brocious and Christian Phillips getting hurt, and that really kind of set them back because they weren't where they needed to be coming out of training camp, and they needed to get through the season healthy to kind of get where they needed to be that 500 team. To me, progress is being competitive, but it also is in terms of a developmental program model like this one wants to be. Can you keep on getting guys developing to the point where you can sustain it? We've seen lots of teams throughout the years, even in good Big Tens. I'll use Maryland as an example. Some of those years where they look unbeatable, look very good early, and then there's an injury or two, and then all of a sudden they fall off the map. I think Michigan State kind of experienced that a little bit last year, but have they gotten the depth that they need to be able to kind of get better as the season goes on? And to me, that's kind of the hallmark of a winning program. So if you want to judge Michigan State, it's are these guys getting better? And I think that's how the coaches would judge their program. But that's not an easy thing to do in a really difficult Big Ten. But a lot of it's going to be the depth that they have this year. It's their roster. You go back, and there's not a whole lot of Mel Tucker guys on this roster when you look at it.
16 or so.
Right. So, I mean, that's a quick
scholarship guys.
That's a quick turnover. I think it really benefits Michigan State in terms of running the football. Going back to the O-line, is that all these guys that they brought in transfers were here in the spring. So you didn't have a deal like a Luke Newman, who was really good, got drafted, but he's playing catch up. I would have much rather had a Luke Newman with a spring and then coming into this program than getting that guy late summer. So I think Michigan State, they've done things to become a better program. I think they're going to be more competitive. But to me, I'm going to be judging it on how are you at the line of scrimmage from week to week? Are you getting better as a football team? Are guys that come in, are they growing? People that are pressed into duty, and I think depth is better, but we'll see what happens over the course of the season. But I do think there's been some good growth from spring till now, from now till almost a season opener, and I'm looking to see how a player development program that wants to be a player development program grows during the season.
They're going to be in some close games, a lot of them, and that determines the direction of the season. And how you do in the red zone in those games, turnovers, how your quarterback does down the stretch, and kicking game. Those things are going to determine if you're in 9 close games, you need to be 5-4 in those close games, and that's going to be difficult. Yeah, and you don't get to play Purdue and Northwestern like some teams do, so there's no gimmies on there. Maryland at the end of the year, but the season will already be in a certain trajectory by that point. As far as kicker goes, Konyndyk and Ahmet Basic have been out with groin strains. I think he said Ahmet Basic was back on the field today.
Yes.
Did he say Konyndyk not yet?
He didn't say whether Konyndyk. I'm assuming that Konyndyk was not back today. He said Ahmet Basic was back. If Konyndyk was back, he would have mentioned it. Neither of those two guys played in the scrimmage on Saturday. Blake Sislow, walk-on kicker, he got most of the kicks in that second scrimmage. So you got two kickers that are fighting to replace one of the best to ever do it here, and neither of those guys have played in either of the two scrimmages. So that's a problem for Michigan State. And again, the kicking game is huge, as you said, in a season of close games. Now, it might work out and it might not. I mean, I would say it's going to be a struggle. The other thing that we still don't know about, the biggest question mark, and I wrote about this a couple days ago, is still rush in. I know they've got some guys that do some things that their rush ins couldn't do last year. In terms of like dropping back in coverage and batting balls and stuff like that. They didn't have those kind of aspects to the rush-in position, but the sack piece, the pass rush piece, I'm not sure what we're going to get. I think there's some guys that have, some good frames. There's some guys that have some maybe horsepower for the future, like Anelu Lafele, but he's a young kid who's 229 pounds. It's great to say he's got horsepower and he can get after a quarterback, but at 229 pounds, a tight end lock him up, and then all of a sudden you're erased. So you'd like to have guys that have the horsepower to get to a quarterback, but also have the strength to get off a block. And I don't know if Michigan State has any of those pieces per se until I see it on the field. So that's the big question mark. But the biggest question mark, the most alarming red flag, in my opinion, is the kicker, and that's a very bad situation to be in for a program. Going into preparation for your season opener. I mean, you're not going to rush those guys out there and play them before they're ready, but to have two kickers that are competing to replace, one of the biggest kickers of all time here, and have them not have an entire camp, that's something I've never seen before.
I heard they were not great in the spring either. They kept them on the roster because they saw some good things in practice the previous fall, I'm assuming. Yeah, Sislow Smith said, what was his quote today? Actually, he's been doing pretty good, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
So Sislow, I looked up his stats months ago. If I recall correctly, he was at Davenport and transferred to Michigan State. He's a redshirt senior. I'm not sure he got much playing time at Davenport. Hold on to your butt.
Yeah, it's not like we've seen this in the past with like D'Antonio, or when Tyler O'Connor had to do a couple of that was punter. But kickers is a whole different animal. So I don't know. They got to be better in the red zone. It puts a lot of pressure on your red zone offense. When you feel like every time you go in there, that no matter what, you've got to score a touchdown. The other thing too is lots of times in the first half of games, you got your offense that's moving, especially early in the season, and you might have some of those drives that you can't punch it in, and but your defense is playing good, and you might have a deal where you're 9-0 on an opponent, and it's a lot better to be that than 6-0 or 3-0 and miss field goals, because you're just leaving a team in there. And Murphy's Law being what it is, when you miss field goals, it usually costs you.
Jonathan Smith is a guy that's gone for it on fourth down more than most coaches do, and this year might be a season in which you might see even more of that on the edge of the red zone.
Can't do that unless you have a run game, though. Effectively. Honestly, those fourth down plays, if you're looking at 4th and 3 and those kind of things, the ones that are the most effective ones are the ones that the defense has to be guessing on whether it's going to be a run or a pass. If it's a deal where the run game's not working and it has to be a pass, then you're doing the defense a favor.
Or you go deep like they did against Oregon early in the game. Connected on that one. And, with the slot receivers improving, Omari Kelly bringing some improvement. Montori Foster was pretty good last year, but I think Omari Kelly might be a step up from there, and I liked Montori Foster a lot. Marshall's going to be better than he was last year. Slot's going to be a lot better. The mix and match there could open up more windows for Jack Velling. Yeah. He might have less attention on him, and if all goes well with his health-wise, I would think that now he had 36 catches last year, whatever it was, pretty good numbers. Only 1 touchdown, though, but an important piece in the red zone, theoretically, possibly.
They skewed a lot towards Jack Velling, especially without the real threat of a run game. And you go back to the Oregon game, even in the early season, those long passes on 4th down, it's because they thought people, that stuff's open because you think you're going to run. I think Jack Velling put a lot of pressure on himself, and there's a lot of pressure on him to produce. And I do think that Jack Velling's going to have a better season. But it's going to be really interesting. I think Michigan State's better in a lot of ways, but how far these guys go, it's going to come to stopping the run and run on the football.
It's football season, Paul. The students are moving in. I think it's welcome week next week, or as I used to call it, welcome month. Begins next Monday, I think. Smattering of students on the sidewalks, drum lines, practicing. Yesterday I felt a little bit of September air in the air, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's football, and Michigan State fans are going to be looking for the Michigan State Spartans to accumulate wins this year. College football is about ready to start. Paul, you ready?
I am ready.
Did you pass your physical? Attaboy. Anything else, Paul? For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. I've been watching the VCast from Perlis Plaza in East Lansing, Michigan with the Spartans for SpartanMag.com.